In fact, sent them home and abandoned them to their abusers with no way to watch, and referrals dropped 50 to 60%. So
there was also a pandemic going on, and they were trying to save
kids' lives. Remember, we know a lot of folks who died during this, so it wasn't, people weren't laying around eating. That's a lot of people.
Well, that is a lot of people, and if you take out everybody that has any of those characteristics, then you're going to take out a lot of people, including some at this table.
It was an all-out showdown when Dr. Phil clashed with Whoopi Goldberg on The View, and fans ate up every fiery second of it. These two daytime TV heavyweights went toe-to-toe, trading blows and sharp jabs like it was a heavyweight title fight. The tension was real, the drama was intense, and the internet couldn't get enough. Lucky for you, I've got every last receipt, and I'm about to spill it all. So strap in, because this tea is scorching.
The same agencies that knew that are the agencies that shut down the schools for 2 years. Who does that? Who takes away the support system for these children? Who takes them away and shuts it down? And by the way, when they shut it down, they stopped the mandated reporters from being able to see children that were being abused and sexually molested, and in fact sent them home and abandoned them to their abusers with no way to watch, and referrals dropped 50 to 60%. So
there was also a pandemic going on, and they were trying to save
kids' lives. Remember, we know a lot of folks who died.
But why was Whoopi so defensive when the conversation shifted to the kids affected during the pandemic? What's she trying to hide? Dr. Phil laid out the cold, hard truth. Kids lost their support systems for 2 long years, trapped in toxic homes with no escape. There were no teachers to look out for them, no friends to lean on. Abuse cases skyrocketed, depression and anxiety among children hit record highs, and learning loss set an entire generation back by years. And just when the reality started sinking in, Whoopi immediately jumped in, waving her hands like a traffic cop trying to shut it all down. She didn't just disagree, she practically insinuated that Dr. Phil was making it all up. Seriously? This isn't some wild conspiracy theory, it's documented reality. Reports from educators, child psychologists, and law enforcement back it all up. Kids needed school, structure, and safety. And they were robbed of all 3.
And around well, you know what? We're lucky. Maybe we're lucky they didn't, because we kept them out of the places that they could be safe, because no one wanted to believe we had it.
Instead, those kids were left to fend for themselves. But of course, when the truth doesn't fit. The View's narrative, they go into full damage control mode. Whoopi couldn't afford to let Dr. Phil's words sink in, because if they did, it would expose just how disastrous those pandemic policies really were. Too bad for her, Doctor. Phil wasn't backing down. Whoa, did Sunny Hostin really just try to counter Dr. Phil's argument by saying the COVID disaster only affected some kids, not all? As if that somehow makes it okay? So, let's get this straight. If only some children suffered, then it's not a crisis. If just a few were abused, neglected, or fell into depression, they don't count. Are they just statistics now? This is exactly the kind of warped thinking that defines the woke left. To them, something only becomes a real crisis when it's politically convenient, when it fits their narrative, when they can weaponize it for control. But if it's just a handful of kids, oh well, brush it under the rug, right? And let's be real, if this were an issue they actually cared about, they'd be screaming from the rooftops. But because it exposes how badly their COVID policies failed, they'd rather downplay it. It's infuriating.
Ask him straight up, kids are coming over the border with numbers written on them, phone numbers and addresses. Do we check those out? He said, well, we call them. Is it possible that we're sending them into known prostitution rings or sweatshops? He said, it's not possible, it is absolute. We are using American tax dollars to ship children into known prostitution and sweatshops.
Some children.
Well,
if even one child had been affected by something they opposed, they'd be out demanding radical change. But thousands of kids locked inside abusive homes, struggling with mental health and missing out on education, just an unfortunate side effect. This is what happens when ideology replaces basic human decency. And Dr. Phil, he wasn't about to let that slide. He came armed with facts. And the more they tried to spin the narrative, the more exposed they became. Yep, Dr. Phil is right on the money. One of the biggest drivers of depression and suicide among teens and young adults today is social media. And no, he's not saying social media is all bad, but he's calling out its toxic side, the part that fuels insecurity, comparison, and straight-up delusion. People are out here living fake lives, driving luxury cars they don't own, flashing stacks of cash they never earned, and flexing in mansions they've never even stepped foot in. And who's watching? Young, impressionable minds who can't tell the difference between highlight reels and real life. They scroll through their feeds, drowning in envy, thinking, why isn't my life like this? And here's the harsh truth. Most of them will never have that life.
Dr. Phil, I want to make sure we get to your new book, which is We've Got Issues. And a lot, you were referring to it in the last segment, how much has changed since you first got started in this. And one of the things is social media.
Well, think about it. In like 08, 09, smartphones came on and kids they stopped living their lives and started watching people live their lives. And so we saw the biggest spike and the highest levels of depression, anxiety, loneliness, and suicidality since records have ever been kept. And it's just continued on and on and on.
Not because they aren't capable, but because even the influencers don't have that life. It's all a mirage, an endless cycle of smoke and mirrors. But the damage, that's very real. Studies show that excessive social media use fuels depression, anxiety, and serious self-worth issues. Kids are out here chasing unrealistic standards, thinking they're failures, when in reality, they're comparing themselves to an illusion. And Dr. Phil, he sees it for what it is, and he's calling it out loud and clear. This is beyond wickedness, if you ask me. Shutting down schools was one of the worst decisions made during the pandemic, an absolute disaster for children's mental and emotional well-being. Kids suffering from anxiety, depression, loneliness, and even suicidal thoughts depended on schools as their support system. It wasn't just about education, it was about survival. Schools provided structure, stability, and, most importantly, people, friends, teachers, and counselors who could step in when things got tough. But once schools shut down, poof, that lifeline was gone, instead of being in a safe environment. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
And then COVID hits 10 years later, and the same agencies that knew that are the agencies that shut down the schools for 2 years. Who does that? Who takes away the support system for these children? Who takes them away and shuts it down? And by the way, when they shut it down, they stopped the mandated reporters from being able to see children that were being abused and sexually molested, and in fact sent them home and abandoned them to their abusers with no way to watch, and referrals dropped 50 to 60%.